Hello and welcome back to Confidence After Cancer. I'm Gabrielle Mottershead. I'm a cancer recovery coach, NLP practitioner and an 18-year survivor of inflammatory breast cancer. And today we're talking about something that sits right at the heart of this podcast, and that's confidence. More specifically, how do you actually start getting your confidence back after cancer treatment ends? Because I think sometimes we talk about confidence as if it will simply return. Treatment finishes, your hair starts growing back, or maybe it doesn't, but you move on. You begin getting back into your normal life, and somehow you're supposed to gradually become the person that you were before. But what if that isn't happening? What if, underneath everything, you just don't feel as confident as you used to before? And that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to give you 5 practical things that you can start doing today, because I don't want you to finish this episode simply understanding why your confidence has changed. I want you to finish knowing exactly what you can do about it. And if you're listening thinking, Gabrielle, this is exactly where I am, then please subscribe or follow the podcast. Everything that I create here is designed to help you navigate that strange, often overlooked period after cancer treatment ends. So let's start. Okay, we're going to think about firstly, why does cancer affect your confidence so much? And what is confidence? It's not just about walking into a room with your shoulders back. It isn't about being loud. It isn't about always being the person who has the answer to everything. Confidence is partly about trust, trusting yourself, trusting your body, trusting your decisions, trusting your future. And cancer can shake every one of those things. I know that only too well. You may have trusted your body before cancer, didn't even think about it. And then suddenly, your body became the place where something frightening had happened, something sinister. You may have been somebody who planned years ahead, and then suddenly your life became organised around appointments, scans, blood tests, and treatment cycles. You may previously have known exactly who you were and what was important in your life. You may have been the capable one, the professional one, the mother, the partner, the daughter, the sister, the friend who looked after everybody else. And then cancer came along and changed all that. It changed the way that you saw yourself. So if your confidence isn't what it used to be, I want you to understand something. You haven't suddenly become a less capable person. You have been through an experience that can profoundly change the way you see yourself and the world around you. And rebuilding your confidence doesn't mean pretending that none of that happened. It means learning to trust yourself again. So let's look at how you can begin. So step 1 is stop waiting to feel confident. And that might sound slightly backwards, but it's really important, because we often think, when I feel more confident, I'll start doing things again. When I feel confident, I'll go back to the gym. When I feel confident, I'll apply for that job. When I feel confident, I'll go out socially. When I feel confident, then I'll book the holiday. When I feel confident, I'll wear that dress. When I feel confident, I'll wear the red lipstick again. But confidence very often comes after the action, not before it. You do something slightly uncomfortable, you survive it, and your brain receives a little piece of evidence. Oh, I can still do this. And then you do something else, another little piece of evidence, and another, and another. And this is how confidence begins to rebuild, very gently, one step at a time. So just ask yourself, what am I waiting to feel confident enough to do? And could you take the smallest possible version of that step this week. Not the huge version, not massively outside of your comfort zone, just a small step, the tiny version. If you've lost confidence socially, perhaps it isn't going to a huge party or speaking on a stage. Maybe it's just meeting one friend for coffee. If you've lost confidence exercising, perhaps it isn't joining a gym and committing to 5 sessions a week. Perhaps it's a 10-minute walk. Small steps literally count. And step 2 is keep an evidence list. I absolutely love this one because after cancer, your mind can be really good at collecting evidence that you're not coping, always looking for the negative. You notice when you're tired. You notice when you forget something. I do that all the time. You notice when you feel anxious. You notice when you don't look the way that you used to. But what about the other evidence? What about everything that you're doing despite what you've been through? So start keeping a little list. Call it whatever you like. Maybe evidence I'm getting stronger. And I used to have a paper diary in my handbag. And I went on a course years ago and somebody was trying to help me with my confidence then. This is way before my diagnosis. And they said, remember all the compliments that people give you or the positive feedback? You forget those, don't you? And I started writing them in the back of my little diary in my handbag. And it did help me on a bad day to have a look at those things. Now, I don't do that anymore, but I do have notes in my phone. A lot of people have notes in their phone. You could have Post-its around you, whatever it is, just to remind you. But keep a little reminder somewhere. And again, they don't have to be huge things, just little things, just evidence, reaffirming to yourself that every day you are getting stronger, my love. And every day, write down one thing. It could be, I went into work even though I felt nervous. It could be, I walked for 20 minutes. It could be, I said no to something I didn't want to do. It could be, I made the phone call that I've been putting off. Or how about, I wore something today that made me feel really good. And I think that's a really important lesson I've learned. I don't so much save things for best anymore because every day we should feel good about what we wear. Every day, wear your good perfume. Do whatever makes you feel good. Use your best china. Have a nice cup of tea out of your best china cup. Or a glass of wine out of your best wine glasses that maybe you save for when visitors come over. How about remembering something like, today was a good day because I asked for help, or I booked something to look forward to. And these things might seem tiny, but they're really not. You are teaching your brain to notice capability again. You're training yourself to look for the positive, not the negative. And these subliminal things that you're not even aware of will help to grow your confidence, because confidence grows from evidence. So start collecting yours. So step 3, notice how you talk to yourself. This is huge. I want you to imagine one of your best friends had been through cancer treatment. Imagine she'd had surgery, chemotherapy, radiotherapy, medication, or whatever her treatment had involved. And afterwards, she said to you, oh, goodness me, I'm exhausted. I don't feel like myself anymore. I don't look like myself. Everyone else seems to be getting on with life, and I just feel like I'm falling behind. Would you say to that friend, well, come on, get a grip, pull yourself together, woman. Treatment finished months ago, or it was years ago. You really should be over this by now. Of course you wouldn't say that. And yet sometimes that's exactly how we speak to ourselves, don't we? So listen to your internal language, that little voice. Are you constantly telling yourself you should be further ahead? I should have more energy. I should be over this by now. I should feel grateful. I should be back to normal. I should be coping better. Well, how about replacing that language with curiosity? Instead of, what's wrong with me? Try asking yourself, what do I need today? Show yourself some kindness and some compassion. So instead of, well, why can't I cope like I used to? Try asking yourself, What is making this difficult for me? That is a completely different conversation that you can have with yourself. And it's a much more useful one. Okay. Step four. Step four is do just one thing that reminds you who you are. Cancer can become an enormous a part of your identity. For months, maybe even years, you've been the patient. People have asked you about your treatment, your appointments, your results, your recovery. I mean, it's huge. And even when treatment finishes, that identity doesn't automatically disappear. So I want you to deliberately reconnect with the parts of you that have nothing, absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with cancer. What did you enjoy before? What made you feel alive? What made you laugh? What made you feel clever, smart, creative? What made you feel sexy? What made you feel strong? What made you feel interesting? Maybe it's music or travel, gardening, clothes, cooking, dancing, learning something new. Maybe it was your career. Maybe it was seeing your good friends. Or maybe it was going somewhere beautiful, getting into nature. Whatever it is, choose one thing and just bring a little bit of that back into your life. Not because you're trying to become your old self again. That is an important distinction. You are discovering who you are now because there's maybe parts of the old you that you want back, and maybe there's parts of you that you don't. And maybe there's completely new parts of you just waiting to emerge. And step 5 is make one promise to yourself and keep it. And this one is super powerful because confidence is closely connected to self-trust. So make yourself one small promise this week, not a huge to-do list, something completely achievable. Maybe if you want to improve your fitness, it could be, I'll walk for 10 minutes 3 times this week, or I'll go to bed half an hour earlier tonight, or I'll call that friend that I keep meaning to call, or I'll spend just 20 minutes doing something just for me, or I'll finally make that appointment that I've been putting off. And then keep that promise to yourself, because every time you keep a promise to yourself, you are sending yourself a message. I can rely on me. And that's where confidence starts to become something much deeper. It becomes self-trust. And I want to remind you, you don't need your old confidence back. And there's one more thing I really want to leave you with. And maybe the goal isn't to get your old confidence back because you've changed. We all do. Of course you have. You've been through something enormous. And perhaps the question isn't, how do I become the woman I was before cancer? Perhaps the real question is, who do I want to be now? And that's a very different question. And it's one of the things I work on with the women in my coaching, because there's often a gap after treatment. You're medically discharged from your appointments or they become less frequent, and everyone around you is understandably relieved. But internally, you might be thinking, okay, but what now? And that's where guided transformation can be incredibly powerful. Not fixing you, not pushing you to get over it, but helping you to rebuild trust in yourself, understand what matters now, and deliberately create the next version of your life. So your challenge this week is what I'd love you to do this week. Just choose one of today's 5 steps, just one, and take the small action that you've been avoiding. Start your evidence list. Change one piece of negative small talk, or do something that reconnects you with you. Just make yourself one promise, a small promise, and keep it. And then just notice what happens. And before you go, here's your reflective question for this week. If I trusted myself just 10% more, what would I do differently? Don't rush to answer that. Maybe just sit with it, think about it, write it in your journal if that's what you do, if you like to journal, because your answer might tell you exactly what your next step is. And if you know that you're more than ready for a small step, if you're ready to deliberately rebuild your confidence and work out who you want to be after cancer, that is exactly the work I do in my Powerfully You, my one-to-one coaching program. You don't have to figure all this out by yourself. So thank you so much for spending this time with me. And if this episode helped you at all, please send it to another woman who might need to hear it. And remember, you don't need to rebuild your entire life today. You need to take one small step. And I will speak to you next time. And until then, remember to stay safe and stay sane. Thanks for listening.